Hey guys, Cody from Southeast Softwash and
Dusty from Southeast Softwash.
he answers to Dustin, Justin, Rusty,
that guy, ball guy.
So we want to do this video for a while now. We just keep forgetting to do it. Hopefully this will be a help to you guys. You saw the title. This is troubleshooting a 12 volt, how to fix a 12 volt system. So this is not specific to just our equipment. So behind us we've got 4 skids right here that are in progress. We've got 2 trailers here, 3 more skids over here. So we've got a warehouse full. Got some guys coming tomorrow, but this should translate over no matter if you're building your own system. You've got something from one of our competitors. Pretty much across the board, this will be 12 volt kind of what's going on. Now, to us, we're gonna try not to come off as super snarky and sarcastic, but some of this stuff, guys, really is common sense. So I have run into this stuff before and it's blown my mind. I wasn't thinking. So a lot of these things that you may think, well, why did they even bring that up in the video? It's because somebody has had that problem before. They've called us and we're like, bro, that's really, really basic. But sometimes you just don't know. So you may be referring to this video for help. We may send you this video, okay? So if you call us needing help, sometimes it's easier if you can just visualize what we're talking about. Trying to talk through some of this stuff on the phone, it kind of gets lost over the phone. If you can see it, it helps a little bit. So we may shoot you this video, watch the whole thing. It'll really help you. And the more you run into these scenarios, the more quickly you can diagnose and kind of say, oh, that's probably what the problem is. So here's how a normal day goes here. Working along, phone rings, and somebody says,
My pump's not working.
That's what they always say. My pump's not working. All right, so we've had that sentence thrown out to us, and it's kind of put on us to try to help them troubleshoot, and winds up that the pump is running and they've got a host of other things that can go wrong. Okay, so when you say my pump's not working, to us or to really anybody that understands these systems, what does that really mean?
It can mean anything.
So
it could be,
your pump, you cut the switch on, right, and nothing happened. Okay, so let's come in here to the trailer. We're going to use this trailer as our example. Pardon me while I drink my NOS. This may be actually Ty's NOS. I stole it. I owe you a NOS. So we've got 2 Softwash systems here, pump, switch, red hose here, and this manifold is one system. This pump, this switch, this manifold go to the blue hose. So they're not tied together in any way on the plumbing or the electrical or their battery source. All that stuff is independent except for the tanks. Okay, so that'll come into play a little bit later. So guy calls and says, my pump won't work. We say, okay, kind of what is going on? What has happened? What were you doing? What's going on? This is what he's getting. Don't let me spray you right there. All right, so you just heard the pump actuate. It came on and ran for a couple seconds. Why did that happen?
Because the pump built up pressure. Pressure switch kicked in, shut the pump off.
So if you do that again, right, we cut it off. An hour later, we come back and do this. Why did it not make any noise that time?
Well, start with, it had a little bit of pressure to build up before switch activated. This time, pressure's built up, cut the switch off, cut it back on, it's not gonna do anything.
Right.
So,
okay, so it's like a thermostat, guys. If you set your thermostat in your house to 72 degrees, but your house is 72 degrees ambient temperature, is anything gonna happen? No. So you could call your heating and air guy and say, man, my unit's not coming on. Well, it's not gonna come on until that pressure switch, which is down here on the bottom of the pump, when it actuates, it detects a loss in pressure in the system. It's gonna tell the pump to actuate, come on, and try to build back up. All this pump is doing is trying to maintain 60 PSI. That's all it's doing. So if you're getting that symptom, you're coming out here, you're cutting your switch on. That one, same thing, okay? Is something broke here? Is something broke here?
Nope.
We've actually had guys call, and you know what the problem was? It shut off at the wand. Okay, so the pump has built pressure all the way through this hose out to right here where our little shutoff valve is on the wand, and it's good to go. It's ready to spray. It's saying, hey, as soon as you open this, is that still on? Yeah. Watch what happens. We'll open the valve, right, and we're spraying. So dude called us, and that was literally there was no problem at all. It was doing everything it was supposed to do, but he thought because he didn't hear anything happen when he cut that switch on, something was wrong. So make sure you have the wand open. What else?
We got to start with electrical, which is usually rare. Usually not anything electrical other than a fuse, but you know, make sure it's plugged in. The fuse is going to be the main thing that's going to go out.
All right, so we say, have you checked your fuse? Yeah, I checked my fuse. Come here. At least 10 times now, guys have called and said, you checked your fuse? Yeah, I checked my fuse. And they're checking this fuse here, which is the fuse for the battery charger. Now, to me and Dusty, that's a little silly because it's 1 inch away from the battery charger. It's got the word NOCO, which is the brand of battery charger, made into the housing. So I don't know how you could get that confused with the fuse on the pump. You maybe just haven't done enough research. You get in a hurry, you see a fuse and you think, oh, that's the fuse. Well, guys, it says NOCO on it. We know the pump ain't made by NOCO, so that wouldn't be the fuse. Where is the fuse, Mr. Wilkins?
Kind of hard to see. So, well, these are not gonna.
These
are not gonna
actually
have
don't have
these.
fuses.
These have the relays on them. So,
Let me
but
bring
that
up-
one. This one
Yeah,
might
come
have.
over here to this trailer.
Yeah. So your fuse is underneath here. Just open this up. There you go. That's gonna be the fuse to your pump. So if we ever tell you to check the fuse on your pump, that's where you're gonna look.
Yeah, now why does that one not have a fuse? What's happening here is Everflow is so behind. Occasionally they will subcontract out. Actually, Delavan makes those pumps. They put an Everflow sticker on it and they ship them as an Everflow. Sometimes we get those in here in the shop. We don't know when they're coming. They're the exact same spec of pump, but those have a relay instead of a fuse, so there's no fuse to check on that pump. But other than that, they're the same pump. So if you check your fuse, it's gonna be down there. What else on electrical can it be?
Make sure your connections are solid. For some reason, you know, back here on the back, this shouldn't happen, but make sure on all your terminals that your wires haven't popped off. But like I said, that all that stuff's gonna be really rare to happen.
Make sure that this is plugged in here. If you have this style, we've recently started making all of our equipment with plug-ins. The way we used to do it and the way most of you guys are gonna do it is probably just straight wire. So you're skinning back the wires, you're putting a wire nut or a butt splice on there. Make sure all that stuff is still good. It could have a little corrosion on it from the weather. Make sure it's got good flow. One thing we like to do, if we think about it as we're building it, is put a little, we didn't do it on this one, it's not necessary, but put a little dielectric grease right here. When you plug that in, it just increases conductivity and it keeps it a little bit more weatherproof. So make sure all that stuff is plugged in. Make sure you're plugged in on the battery side, right?
Set screw, again, rare, but if it's spun out too far, it's not gonna, it don't need enough pressure, so it may just not be kicking on.
Look at this pump right here. This one it's flipped the other way so you can see it.
Yeah.
There's a little 2 millimeter Allen set screw right there, and that is your adjustment for the pressure switch. If that is out of dial, it's not dialed into where it needs to be, it may not be activating, so you can adjust that. Now, something that I found over the years, as these pumps kind of get some life on them, you've used them a little bit, if the pump seems sporadic, like sometimes it don't want to come on, take your pocket knife. You should have a pocket knife. If you're a grown man, you should have a pocket knife. Take something, you know, with a little bit of weight and just tap that right there. There could be debris inside there and it's not letting it actuate, and if you smack it, it might come on. Well, that's telling you the pump itself is still fine, but it's probably going to be time to go ahead and change that pump out. But you can get a little bit of action out of it and get through the end of a job. That might just be your culprit. So electrical stuff, anything else?
One more thing, if you check, sometime when you check your fuse, it's easier to pull this out. And if you happen to, this one only has one port, so your fuse is going to go into this very top one, or if it's flipped, being the bottom, very top up here. This one over here actually has 2 ports that you can plug this into. So if you, for some reason, are checking this and you accidentally unplug that, make sure it goes back into the bottom one on this. So there'll be a prong in between this one and this one. If you for some reason put this up here, it's not going to work.
Yep. And we've done that before. I've worked on the old work truck, and Ty's gonna come here and see if he can show you what we're talking about. Let's see. Let me get the phone here. So if you see here on the top, we've got the little brass prong in there. Okay, that one's good. You can't really goof that one. But the bottom one, there's let me get my pocket knife and point to it with the pocket knife. Guys, there's just no good way to do this video without kind of funky camera quality. But see right there, there's a prong, and then there's another one up there. So it should be on that bottom one. I think they could get a good visual of that. So make sure you plug it into the right prong, and make sure that that's not loose. Jonathan actually drove all the way back to the shop one day because his pump wasn't working, and I literally opened the door of the truck and wiggled that, and pump came on. So it was just a little floppy and loose right there, and as it gets corroded and from use, especially if these are mounted this way and stuff is running down on these, just wiggle that. Make sure all that stuff, just check your connections. That's where some of that dielectric grease will help with stuff like that. Make sure it's plugged in correctly. That shouldn't ever move unless you unplug it.
That's right.
Okay, so anything else electrical? What else could be bad? Well, your switch could be bad. Probably not the case, but it's happened. We've had bad switches before.
Yeah.
So how would you diagnose? You've checked all that kind of basic stuff. Now we're getting into
More advanced.
something's broke, right?
Yeah.
In the previous paragraphs, nothing's broke.
That's right.
Right. Now something has gone awry. Maybe it's the switch. How do you check it?
So if you want to check your switch about here on your connections, you can take a jump wire, if you know what I'm talking about there. Just a short wire, bare ends on each side, and you can jump these two terminals here, or if you don't, if you just got a screwdriver, you can take this off and just touch these two wires together. So you're bypassing the switch and you're making a straight connection from the pump to the battery. If it comes on, then you know you got a bad switch.
Yep.
If nothing happens, then you've got a problem somewhere else.
Now, if you've got one of our trailers, let's look back at this trailer. This is an easy one here to check because all you could do is just unplug here and plug in over here. You could basically plug it into the other circuit, all right? And if it comes on, you know that this switch is probably bad. That's pretty rare, especially on the trailers. These are marine grade switches, so it's probably not that. But we've personally had switches go out, and it could be that. Anything can happen at any time. So your switch could be bad. All right, so you know for a fact that you've got your wand open, you're getting, the switch is working.
There's no kink. Make sure there's not a kink in the hose, because that can be the same thing as your wand being off. If it's kinked, there's no flow. The pump could just be activated with pressure. So
You're rolling this thing up after a job, you get one of those, and you just keep on cranking, you don't pay it any attention, you bury that. Well, what's gonna happen is the pump is gonna pressurize up to that spot, because the pump doesn't know the difference between that and this valve in the on position. And I've had a guy in Louisiana call. We thought it was a bad pump because of what he was describing didn't make any sense. Anything but a bad pump. Sent him a new pump and it did the same thing. It wound up being, he figured it out, it was just a kink way down inside the hose reel. So pull all of your hose off, make sure you don't have a kink. Here's what I like to do. If I'm troubleshooting that far and I haven't got it running yet, come in right here, Ty. I'll just take this hose off. This is my discharge hose from the outgoing side of the pump, and it comes right here and feeds into the hose reel, so pressure is coming this way. I'll just take this hose off because it's easy to get to. It's right here. And what does that do for us, Mr. Wilkins?
You bypass all of that. So you'll know from that point you've got flow. So you're taking out of the equation that there's a kink in the hose or something anywhere going on this hose reel.
Just eliminate the hose
You're
reel.
eliminating everything to this point.
And if it works, you're gonna have liquid shoot out of this hose right here, because that's what normally is working when it's working right. Okay? What else? Anything else electrical?
That would be it, I think, as far as the pump just not coming on at all.
Make sure your battery has charge. Now, even if your battery is really, really low, it's probably still gonna come on and try to turn that pump. We've had guys call and say, hey, my pump's not working. Well, I say, send me a video, man. He sends me a video and he's just spraying like crazy. Now, it's a janked up spray pattern, right? It's not spraying correctly, but what he worded to us was, my pump doesn't work. Well, the pump's working, okay?
Yeah.
If it's running, that means it's getting power and it's spinning that motor, so the pump ain't bad. That's probably an air leak or some performance issue, right? Anything else with my pump won't work?
I think that's about.
That should be it.
That's gonna be about it on that.
Okay. So what else do we have?
So
Here's the
then-
next question.
So my pump is not spraying right, or my pump don't have a lot of flow.
Poor performance,
Yeah.
okay? All right, well, what can that be? Now, again, that means your pump's working, but now we've got a performance issue. So we had a guy call a week ago. He's got a trailer and he's spraying along here on the red line, loses distance. So he's like, man, I don't know, I ain't got time to figure it out. He rolls that one up, pulls the blue one off, gonna continue so he can finish the job. No pressure from right off the bat. Well, instantly we know what that is, and what would that be?
An empty tank. And it hurts people's feelings when you tell them that, but it's just, it is what it is. That's the only thing that ties these two systems together is the tanks. So if you're spraying, that's pretty much a given. If you're spraying and it's going good and you immediately have a drop in pressure, you're gonna have an empty tank. Most of the time, for some reason, it's soap tank, because people are focused on the water and the bleach, but they just, for some reason, don't think about soap. That's usually which one it is.
That has happened probably a dozen or 15 times. Guys have called, they've got our systems, and it's an empty tank, guys. So think about this. When you're out working, what is the only thing that is changing all the time on your equipment that's designed to change? It's the liquid levels, right? So you're spraying out of those tanks, that's always dropping down. So just because you fill that tank up on Monday, if it's Thursday and you've been spraying, well, that liquid's gone, right? So you've got to make sure your tanks have liquid in them. Make sure that it's above the bulkhead. So on our systems, on the trailers, the drop sticks come down from the top and we go about that far off the bottom. Why do we do that?
Just for trash.
So if there's a little bit of debris and flow, okay? It's gotta be able to have enough clearance to flow. On the soap tank, the bulkheads are at the bottom, but you can't get them like right on the bottom of the tank. So we've had guys call and they have that much liquid in the tank. And well, I've got liquid in the tank. No, that's an empty tank, okay? What's happened is it's dropped just below the level and it's sucking in air through that pipe, that drop stick, or that bulkhead fitting. So number one thing, you don't want to feel like a silly salmon. Go check your tanks, physically look at them. If you're just spraying and all of a sudden, it's probably an empty tank, okay? What else could it be?
An air leak.
What is an air leak?
What is an air leak? Air leak is anything, it's gonna be anything on the suction side of your pump. So from the left side of your pump back, you can have air leak. That's why we do everything in clear hose, so you can easily diagnose it.
Yep.
You know, you can start with shutting off one valve at a time. Shut them all off, open them up, and you can kind of single them out that way.
So what kind of symptoms are you gonna have if you have not an empty tank, but an air leak?
You'll hear air, you'll have trouble, the pump won't prime up all the way. You still have flow, but it's just not great. You know, you may lose 10, depending on the air leak, you're just gonna lose some performance on it. And it's not gonna fall off that quick. So if you're spraying, it jumps off really quick, it's an empty tank. But if you just notice over time that your performance is dropping down, you're gonna have an air leak somewhere.
So let's look at some places where you can get an air leak. When we say an air leak, basically you're getting air sucked into the system on the suction side. If it's on the discharge side of this pump, anywhere past right here, you're gonna see it because that's gonna be spraying liquid out, right? All this stuff has to be 100% sealed up. If it's not sealed up on the outgoing side, any of these fittings, any of this stuff, it's gonna be skeeting water, skeeting liquid. If it's on this side, it can be anywhere literally from this barb that goes on the pump, the hose that goes on the barb, all the way back. Anywhere on the manifold, all these connections have to be 100% tight. Even like these unions, see this? These GF valves, they're unionized. So you can spin that off, right? Now, let's listen to the pump. You hear that? Well, you actually can see the air bubbles coming up through the line. If you look closely, see all these air bubbles? Okay, now I obviously took the thing all the way apart, so it's not gonna work. That is an air leak, but it could just be that this has vibrated from going down the road. It's sucking in just a little bit of air and it's hurting your performance. So just check this stuff, make sure all this stuff is snug, make sure all these fittings are still sealed up. Let's go ahead and put this back right so we don't flood the shop here. Kind of finicky. Got the bottom one. And I'm getting wet.
And it's cold.
And it's cold. All right, we got that back together. All right, so now we've just fixed an air leak. Let's listen to the pump. It reprimed. It sounds like it's supposed to. No air bubbles in the line. Problem solved, okay? Now, if it's not right there, you know, super obvious, maybe it's back here somewhere. One thing you could do to start diagnosing, I don't want to fix anything on the water system or the surfactant line if it's a problem on the bleach line. So what would we do to kind of process of eliminate down? We know we've got an air leak, we just don't know where it's at. And usually that is aggravating, trying to kind of isolate. So what could we do?
Just shut your valves off.
You shut
One at a
valves
time.
off, open them one at a time, right? Open the water valve, cut it on, see if the problem goes away, work our way through. Whew, had to sneeze. So we could work our way through shutting the valves off, and if it's, let's say it's on the bleach leg of the manifold, but it's back here, all the way here at this hose clamp going into the bleach tank. It could be right there. It could be a bulkhead right here where this elbow is into the bulkhead. That has to be sealed up. On the inside of that tank, there's another fitting and a drop stick PVC that goes down. All that has to be perfectly sealed up. But if we don't know if it's the bleach line, the water line, the surfactant line, if we don't know, we can just start isolating systems. We can cut each one off, open them one at a time, and it's going to tell you when you open the one that the problem is located on that leg of the system, because that's when you'll get your problems.
That's right.
Anything else?
You can see, yeah, and sometimes you know, we fixed a little bit of it's an air leak, but you know, sometimes you can come back here and look and you see it's a little bit of bubble coming through one of these lines. Sometimes you can just shut your other two off and it'll grab on. That's a mystery.
Well, I know the reason it does that is you really need to prime these lines one at a time, especially anytime you drain a tank all the way, you just put a bunch of air in the whole system. These pumps can self-prime up to 8 feet, but we've got 3 legs on here. So if you prime them, the proper way to do it, we hardly ever do it because it'll pull the air out eventually. It's just open this one, prime it, shut it back off, open the bleach one, prime it, and it'll pull. There'll be a little pocket of air at wherever the highest point is. That air is gonna rise, and it will pull that bubble down. So you wanna prime them one at a time. That'll help that pump to defeat that air pressure. So it's very simple. Here's the good news. Air leak's your most common problem. Why? Well, because you're bouncing down the highway in this thing. We've had customers buy this thing. We're in central Alabama, drive it clear to Texas, Chicago, all over Michigan. And they call us the next week and they've got a little tiny air leak and they're kind of frustrated. We have to tell them, man, you did just drive it 1,000 miles. You know, it's probably bounced around. So it could be just something as simple as tightening a hose clamp, making sure something, you know, one of these unions is snugged up. The good news is they always are able to fix it, usually fix it in 10 minutes or less. We would probably fix it in 2 minutes or less because we've looked at this stuff a lot. And typically, how much does it cost to fix an air leak?
Nothing.
$0. Okay, it's just something was sealed up, now it's not sealed up, and we've got to reseal it. Okay, think of it like this. You go to the restaurant, you get your straw, you bounce it on the table to get the straw out of the paper, and you put a crack in your straw. We've all had that happen to us. You stick it in that big old 40-ounce cup, as long as that crack in the straw is submerged, you can't tell it. But as soon as you suck it past that point, you start getting air into the straw and you can feel it in your mouth. You can feel it. That's the exact same thing that's going on in these pumps. It has to be a 100% sealed system, okay? Make sure all your suction side is sealed up. Those are performance issues. Easy to fix, might take a minute to find it. What's next?
Also on that, if you're at a job and you know you've got plenty in there, make sure you're not parked on a hill too steep, because your liquid will shift in your tank and one of your drop sticks may not be picking up enough. You'll be getting a little air in there.
Good point. You got 20 gallons, but you're parked on a severe hill. Your liquid may be on one side. So.
Yep. Let's see. Low battery. If you've been running them for a long time, or you forgot to charge them for a couple of days, but you can kind of tell. You can hear the sound of that pump barely wanting to run.
Yeah. So we use deep cycle marine grade interstate batteries. You've got about 6 to 8 hours of spray time. Now understand that's 6 or 8 hours of solid running, never cutting it off. and you've got two systems here, so you got plenty of spray time. The only time we've ever drained a battery, we were doing an apartment complex, and we just didn't cut the thing off all day. So in that scenario, your performance drops, but it's just an electrical. You're not getting enough juice to the pump. So it could be that. That's easy. Just recharge your system. Probably never going to happen unless you forget to charge at night and you do a bunch of big jobs. You can really skip a day charging these.
Yeah.
They ain't going to even notice any difference. But if you skip 2 days and you do a whole bunch of roof cleaning or something where you're using a lot of juice, you may see a performance drop in your system, but it's just battery related. Easy fix. If you get a bad battery, we've had a couple of them. You know, we've used so many. Sometimes you get a bad one. Change it out. Put another battery back in there. What else?
It leaks on the pump. Sometimes you'll start to get a leak around this head right here in the seal. And I don't know what, most of them are Allens. I don't know what, I guess that's an Allen too. Well, that's a Star. But anyway, there's little bolts around there. Just snug them up. Sometimes, you know, coming out of the box, they're not completely snug, but they're fine. And then after a while, they'll start to leak, but you can usually fix that by tightening those up.
There's a gasket between the head of the pump and the little motor. Actually, Ty had to fix the one on the mini skid yesterday. It's been sitting over there pressurized, and we walk over, there's a little puddle. Well, that's all it was, brand new pump, snugged up those Allens, fixed it. It's not a problem, you just want to catch that.
Yeah.
Guys having problems, they call us, well, I swear I rinsed my pumps out, and there's just
They're
crap, salt all over them. I don't really know if you're rinsing them out, guys. That's really the key to getting longevity out of these pumps, is rinsing them out. You need to rinse your pump. My dad did a video this morning on his way to work talking about rinsing out pumps. When should you rinse out your system?
Every time you use it, every job.
So if you go to a house and you wash that house, you roll up and go to the next house?
No, you rinse and then you go to the next house.
You rinse.
Don't matter if it's 5 minutes up the road.
Don't matter.
Rinse it, then go to the next job.
And we've built our systems, and most of the other ones out there are the same. It's easy to rinse out, guys. There's really no excuse to not rinse your system. When you get done with the job, the last thing you should do is put this hose up and leave. While you're getting a check, getting your ladders, putting your stuff up, taking your photos, getting, you know, with the homeowner, cut your soap off, cut your bleach off, leave the water valve on, let the pump run. Here's what we'll do. We'll take this little tip off so that it flows a whole bunch more volume. Right now the water valve is the only one that's on, and we'll just run it. Now, there's about 50 seconds of spray time inside this line. So anytime you change ratios or go from spraying to rinsing out, just remember you've got 50 seconds before you actually get to water. So if you rinse your pumps out for a minute, you know, you really haven't even done anything at that point. So we'll let them run a good 10 minutes. The more the better, because you're rinsing out the manifold, you're rinsing out the pump, you're rinsing out the inside of the hose reel, the wand, you're rinsing out all those components, and it will last a whole lot longer. The pumps are, you have to look at them as wear parts. Ty comes from a maintenance background. I do as well. There are things called wear parts. They are designed, there's no way to get entropy out of a system 100%. We just want to maximize their life. I think a lot of guys, you know, will use 4 to 6 pumps a year on a heavy working year. Some guys are saying they're using double that. I can guarantee you why that is. It's just not rinsing the pumps out. I've been doing this for 18 years, guys. I know about how much, you know, and another thing to think about too is if you've been doing this a year, you've got 1 year of sample size data. I've got almost 20. All right, so these pumps should last you a good, we had some pumps that last us 4 months. Yeah. I mean, using them, making tons of money with them. A pump would make us 40 grand, $100 pump. And we had some that lasted 2 months, month and a half, and we just changed it out. In the grand scheme of things, very, very low maintenance cost, very simple, easy swap out, right? It's not a lot of money. $100 pump makes me 30 grand. That's pretty good return. Yeah. You're gonna go through them though. So we're just trying to maximize life. We're trying to reduce in the field problems because they're just aggravating. They slow you down, but you're gonna use pumps, okay? We just wanna minimize pump swaps and changes as much as possible. What else do we got?
That's about it. So if you've done all that, if your pump's running, your pump is normally fine. You're gonna have an air leak. You got something going on.
We've missed one.
Wow.
We actually had this phone call. Hey, guy called and said, my pump won't work. That was what he said. My pump don't work. You hear it? Pump's doing what?
It's running.
It's running. Okay, so we know it's not the pump. All it wound up being was he had his valves off. Okay, well, it can't get any flow because you've got the valves off. Just, again, guys, check the simple stuff. I would say 8 times out of 10, it is something really, really simple like that.
Airlock.
Could be airlock. That's I'm glad you remembered that. This is rare, okay, but it can happen. Now these pumps are supposed to self-prime. They're supposed to, and they do. But a couple of times, went down and helped a guy in Florida fix his. It was airlocked. So all we did was we took this hose off and force fed some water in there through the garden hose. The pump was just having trouble priming, and we basically force primed it. The reason I did it here is because this was the easiest hose to get to. Just take a screwdriver, take an impact, pull this hose clamp off. If you've got a hair dryer, it'll help heat that hose off. It'll slide off that barb a lot easier. Take a regular old garden hose and just put it up to it and kind of try to seal it with your hand and force feed water as the pump is running. It will suck that water up and prime. Once it does, cut the switch back off where it'll hold prime, stick your hose back on, reinstall the hose clamp, you're good to go. That's pretty rare. It should defeat these air pockets, but sometimes even with your pressure washers, they can get airlocked. It'll suck an air bubble up and it just can't push that air anywhere, so it won't prime up. Anything else? Low flow, lack of performance, pump leaks at the head. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Think of anything?
Like I said, if it's running, you got an air leak, pump's fine, could be airlock. If it's not running at all, that's when you gotta look to see if you might have a bad pump. And if your fuse is blown and you change your fuse and it pops immediately, and you go up to a 30 and it pops immediately, you're gonna have a bad pump.
Yeah.
But once you go through all of the steps of electrical, make sure your one is on, able to flow, your pressure switch is not activated, you don't have a kink in your hose. Once you've checked all that and your fuse, if your fuse is good and you're still not getting anything, then you can say you have a bad pump.
Yeah. It come with a 20 amp fuse. It's not recommended, but you can put a 30 amp fuse in there and see if that's the, it is engineered to blow at 20 amps for a reason. It's a safety feature. But if it's blowing fuses as soon as you put one in there and cut it back on, that's a bad pump. Now, I have fixed bad pumps before that were bad pumps, and you can take the pump apart and fix it, and usually it's a fixable problem inside the electromagnet of the pumps, just a 12-volt motor. So normally that ain't even worth fooling with. Like, we're out there trying to make money. I don't care about the pump. You know what you do with those? You trash them, you put another pump on. So guys, it's the simple stuff first. Check the simple stuff. Most of the time, it is something simple. We've been doing this a long time. We've took, at this point, hundreds and hundreds of troubleshooting phone calls. And to be honest, how many of them were a bad pump?
I mean, literally a handful. Just a handful. So most of them are very simple.
Normally it's something just real dumb. Not saying the operator is dumb. We're all dumb at some point when it comes to something. If you took me out of this universe and dropped me in something else I didn't have no idea about, I would be dumb. But here's what I want you guys to do. Assume you're probably not knowing what you're looking at, okay? So when you have a problem, don't panic. Refer to this video, give us a call if you've got our equipment. If you're some random dude, don't call us, because we're a company. We're not just here to answer all the questions for the universe. But it's usually fixable. It's usually 9 times out of 10, it's something just real silly. And if it's a bad pump, it's a bad pump. It's not the end of the world. Put another one on it, go back to making money. Hope this video helps. Know it's a little bit long. We just wanted to put everything in one chunk so you can watch it. Go forth and conquer. Hope you guys maybe this will help with your maintenance stuff, and we'll check in with you later. See ya.